Jai Atmeshwar, Samarpan Yog of the Himalayas, Part 1, Episode 11. When I woke up in the morning, I found that the tribal people were saying their prayers. That day, I watched a wonderful scene. The tribal people came wearing colorful costumes and carried bamboo baskets, which were decorated with leaves and flowers. They came before Gurudev and placed their bouquets in front of him, and sitting with both their hands locked behind their backs, they touched their foreheads to the ground. They were sitting in a row in Vajrasan, one of the postures in Hatha Yoga, whilst performing this ritual, and I thought it was lovely. Everyone here respected Gurudev very much, and since I had come with Gurudev, they treated me with great respect too. I could not understand their language, nor had I ever seen such costumes. The ladies wore a lungi, a long piece of cloth wrapped around their waist, and over it they wore a big blouse with several beaded chains. The men wore only a short lungi and tied a special kind of cloth on their heads. They knew Gurudev from the beginning and considered him to be Paramatma. Whenever they were in trouble or faced problems, they would pray to Paramatma through the medium of Gurudev. They prepared glasses made of bamboo by cutting it near the knotted part. They cut about 8 to 10 inches above the knot and used the glass for drinking water or any other liquid. They had a drink which was similar to tea, to which they added bay leaves and ginger. It had a very pungent taste, and I thought it was similar to a decoction. They gave it to me, and I drank it, or rather, I pretended to drink it, as I did not like the taste. I used to throw it away when they were not looking. I accepted it to respect their feelings, as it was given with great reverence. They used various herbs to cure illnesses. They also used some special leaves for exorcism. When I observed their method of exorcism carefully, I realized that they used the leaves of a particular tree to clean the aura of the person before them. When a person gets negative thoughts, his aura gets polluted, and as a result, it cannot absorb the required energy and becomes ill. These people use the method of exorcism to clear the aura of the person who had polluted it through negative thoughts. They would twirl special herbal plants around the person and then throw them into the fire. They said that they cleared the person of the effect of the evil eye of bad spirits, and the person would start feeling perfectly fine. When I was a child, my maternal grandmother similarly used to clear me of the bad effects of an evil eye by twirling big red chilies and mustard seeds around me and then put them in the fire. This was especially done where there were many people around at some function, and they would lift and carry me. If I got a fever after that, Grandma would say that it was due to the number of people around and that someone's evil glance must have fallen on me. She would then make me sit on the floor, take red chilies and mustard seeds in her hands, and move them from left to right once, and then from right to left. She did this 7 times. She did not know about the chakras, but doing this was a tradition, and I felt that the method of exorcism used by these tribal people was similar. There was a special person in the village who was quite old. He had a special hut for carrying out this activity. He was called Don't Die, and throughout the year he performed exorcism on all people in the village and prayed for them. In return, the people gave him food grains after the harvest, and that was his livelihood. This person is also called Ojha, witch doctor among some communities. According to these people's way of thinking, the effect of evil spirit pollutes a person's aura and he becomes ill. These people believed in spirits and ghosts. They were very pure and simple-minded and depended more on natural methods for curing sicknesses. Or one could say that they were forced to depend on nature because of the situation there, where there were no modern medical facilities. Whilst wandering in the jungles, I used to feel that the earth is vast, so huge, and man has developed a small part of it and thinks that the human race has developed. In reality, it is man's ignorance which makes him think this way. Even now, there are several settlements, several undisclosed places which people from the modern world have not yet found. There are places where one cannot even imagine human habitations. These tribal people were totally without cunning and believed in rebirth. They believed that if they performed some deeds, karma, in this life and did not surrender them, then they would have to take another birth to undergo the effects of those acts. There was one particular incident. The tribal king was staying on top of a hill. He invited Gurudev and me for a meal to his house. There were vast plantations of ginger around his house. At 11 o'clock in the morning, an old tribal woman passed in front of the king's house. She was carrying a whole basket full of firewood tied to her back. The king bought all the wood from her and paid her with 4 bamboo glasses full of rice. This way of bartering had been decided in advance. The woman had asked for 4 glassfuls of rice in return for the wood, and afterwards she went on her way. I asked the king, "You already have so much wood. Why did you buy more wood from the old woman?" The king replied, "If I had not bought the wood from her, she would have had to cross this hill to get to her village, and that would have been too much trouble for her. That is why I bought the wood from her. Buying the wood was just an excuse. Actually, I wanted to help her." Later, we had lunch, and afterwards, we were sitting outside and chatting when the old woman returned and gave some rice back to the king. She said, "After going home, I saw that you had made a mistake and given me 5 glassfuls instead of 4 glassfuls of rice. So I have come to return the extra rice. The king replied, Hey, so what if I gave you a little more rice? I would not have missed it. The old woman gave a very knowledgeable reply to that. You may not have any need for it, but I will have to take another birth to pay you for that extra rice. I desire liberation in this life and do not want to take another birth. Therefore, I do not want the depth of that rice on myself, and I do not want to take another birth for a handful of your rice. So I am returning it. Man has to pay for obligations, murder, and revenge at some time or the other. After that, the woman returned the rice and left. I found this incident deeply meaningful and said to Gurudev, We consider these tribal people backward, but their thoughts are so pure and progressive. This incident really impressed me. This community, which was backward and undeveloped, did not want to take anything from anyone. Later, the king said, I had purposely given her more rice because I wanted to help her, but to allow her to keep her self-respect, I took the rice back. That night, one question kept coming up again and again in my mind. Is this community more developed, or is our modern society? So who is backward? I was thinking about it, but don't remember falling asleep. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of goats bleating. I saw that 2 kids were crying for their mother, and the mother goat was calling out to them. The kids were pure white with some black spots here and there. They looked very sweet. They were still very small, but were very agile. I tried to catch them, but could not. Later, with great difficulty, I managed to catch one of them. These goats were very small compared with other ordinary goats. The kids were tiny, and their mother was also short and small. Later, I took the kids one by one to their mother. The mother was happy, and so were the kids. They started suckling on her. They were sucking so hard that the poor little nanny goat was shaking and could not stand still. Later, when I went to freshen up, I found that there was a well in the yard in front of the hut. The well was very small and shaped like a big drum, and the water was just 10 to 12 feet deep. I drew the water with a bucket and rope and then saw that someone had already drawn the water for me in a nearby bucket. It was an earthen bucket like the flower pots in a garden. But because of the water, the color of the edge of the bucket had turned yellow and red. This showed that this was heavy water, and the iron content in it was very high. It looked a little oily and was difficult to digest. These people farmed ginger and sold it in nearby settlements where they bought other commodities. No one had any knowledge of money or currency. The ancient barter system was practiced. Rice and vegetables were grown, and everyone was happy and satisfied. Dancing and singing were the main forms of entertainment. They used to make thread out of cotton and weave the cloth. They had no connection with the outside world, and they lived thinking that their world was the whole world. They did not have any knowledge about my life, and I did not want to tell them about it. They thought I belonged to Gurudev's world, and I did not disillusion them, nor did I tell them much about myself. Slowly, we established a dialogue through facial expressions and sign language. They could speak a little broken Assamese, and I replied in a little broken Assamese. The king's name was Zinga, and he appeared to be the richest and most progressive person in the settlement. He spoke very little, but listened with interest to everything that was said. He was short and stocky, but his eyes looked very serious. His wife was just the opposite. She was very jolly. Both were old, and the wife was lovely and very compassionate. They took good care of me. Most of the time, Gurudev used to be in meditation, and no one had the courage to go near him. Everyone looked at him with a feeling of awe. Gurudev's accommodation had been prepared outside the village among the big trees. I could not understand everything they said, but I was happy to be amongst humans. In the evening, their children would surround me. I was a different kind of creature for them. Most of the children used to look at me with curiosity. Maybe I appeared to be an alien from outer space to them. These little children were also very strong. Each child used to carry a coconut with one hand and bring it to me. A coconut filled with water is quite heavy, and the children used to bring me really tender green coconuts. Perhaps, as a result of living in nature, these children had also become a part of nature. The hut which had been allotted to me was constructed from mud and had a roof made out of fine grass. The king told me that the same roof had lasted since his childhood, despite being almost 100 years old. It was just the same, and when it rained, it did not absorb any water. This showed that even a grass roof could last for more than 100 years. I found this really surprising. The grass was very fine, and there was a layer of about a foot of it on the hut. It had been constructed in such a way that no water could drip from it, nor would it be blown away during a storm. The hut had been built with strong protective armor. They used to take me to the lake to bathe in the morning. The lake had been formed from a small river, and its water was quite warm, though the weather outside was very cold. They told me that the water was hot, and in truth, when I dived into the water, I did not feel the cold and wanted to stay there longer. But I bathed quickly and got out as Gurudev was going to come out of his deep meditation on that day, and he had called me in the morning. I quickly got ready and went and sat in front of Gurudev's hut. After a while, Gurudev came out and took me to the top of the hill. He pointed in the direction of the hill on the opposite side and said, "A sage lives on the opposite hill. He is always in a state of meditation. I have spoken to him today, and I am sending you to his ashram for further sadhana, spiritual practice. His ashram is on the hill where you can see a small rivulet. To get there, you will have to descend across this entire range of hills and then cross the small hill on the opposite side. After that, you will have to climb up again. It may take you 8 to 10 days to reach there, and you should take with you everything you need as you have to leave tomorrow morning." He said all this so quickly that I suddenly felt shaken. "I have been preparing you all this time, and now you are ready to go to him. I am old now. I am passing the flame of my devoted spiritual practice into your safekeeping. Do not ever allow this flame to die. From today, I will remain alive only in your form. The purpose of my life has been fulfilled. After bidding you farewell tomorrow, I will return to my cave. My Guru gave me this responsibility and said, the values of spiritual practice are important and they should remain alive. Humans come and go. That is not important. It is we who help in conveying the good values of devoted spiritual practice to the next generation. The time is not right for future generations. That is why we are aware of the facts and the next generation isn't. And that is why the flame of spiritual practice should continue to burn eternally. This is the only support for those who are wandering in darkness and searching for the right path. After saying this, my Gurudev handed over the values of spiritual practice into my custody. I am now passing them on to you for safekeeping and feel satisfied that I have completed the task in accordance with the assurance I had given my Gurudev. Now there is no purpose left, nor any reason for me to remain alive. I will return to my cave and give up my physical body. My Gurudev resides in that cave. I will go and embrace him and say to him, Gurudev, I have obeyed your orders and have passed on the flame of the values of devoted meditation practice into suitable hands. Now please give me permission to enter the sacred abode of liberation. That is what I am going to tell him. The very thought of being separated from him made me tremble and burn, and I started to cry. He told me that life is not important. What is important is what you have gained from life. How long you have lived is not important. What is important is what you have understood. There is only one purpose in the life of every human, and that is the liberation of one's soul in the presence of the physical body. It is for this very reason that man takes birth. I too obtained the state of liberation in my life, but I could not give up my physical body without my Gurudev's permission. Now, the purpose of this physical body has been accomplished, and the spiritual work of handing over the flame of the values of spiritual practice has also been completed. I trust you completely. You will never allow this flame to die. I can see tomorrow, the future. Thousands of rivers will come and meet you, and you will become the ocean of the values of spiritual practice. Jai Atmeshwar. We will conclude the part of today's book reading over here. Thank you for listening.